candidates. We'll have each of you start by giving a introduction about yourself and your background and what makes you a good candidate, your qualities that you have that make you a good candidate. So Anne, you can go ahead and start first.
Thank you. I'm Anne Osmundson. I have lived around Volga all of my life. My husband and I still live near Volga. We farm, have a cow-calf operation. We have a small agriculture business. We've been married for 46 years, I believe, and we have 7 children. Also 21 beautiful grandchildren. I stayed home and took care of my kids. I did book work for my husband, helped in the decisions in the business and in the farming. And then we had some people that met in our home. We wanted to learn more about our government, about our country. And so for like 7 years, once a week, we had people come to our house and we would watch videos and talk about our government. And 6 years ago then, Christy Hager was running for the House. She asked if I would clerk for her if she were elected. I thought, wow, what a good way to learn about the government firsthand. So she won, and I did go and clerk for 2 years for Christy Hager. And she decided not to run as a legislator again, and so I did run and just felt like I could represent the values that are in our area, very conservative, farm-oriented, and so I've been in the legislature for 4 years and am looking forward to being there for another 2 years.
Brian? Great. Well, first of all, I want to thank the Monona Outlook and the North Iowa Times, Clayton County Register for hosting this. I think it's a really important event. As I said, my name is Brian Bruening. You may recognize the last name Bruening. It's all over various rock quarries around. Just so you know, that's not exactly my family. That's the side of the family that got all the money. My family, I'm originally from New Hampton, Iowa, and I grew up on a family farm through the 80s farm crisis, and I learned a lot through there about hard work, but also making do with what you have. And so I think that really prepared me in life for being a small business owner. And I've always been really involved in my community, even starting in high school. I taught CCD after school on Wednesday nights for St. Mary's Catholic Church. In college, I was a student advisor for new students. I've served on the Chamber of Commerce in Elkader area, and I have really been a major sponsor of the arts community in Elkader during my time here. So I graduated from New Hampton High School and went to Boston for college. I got my bachelor's degree in English from Boston University, went on to get my master's in fine arts from Emerson College, and I also worked in college admissions at that time. And I loved living in Boston, I really did. It's exciting, it's fun and everything, but I truly missed living in a small town in Iowa. There's nothing that you can really compare to that. And I would tell people that, I'm thinking about moving to Iowa, and they would ask me why, and I was like, you know what, if you have to ask, you don't get it. You don't get the beauty of living in a small town. So we came back to Iowa, we settled in Elkader, and opened Shara's Restaurant in a historic building on the Turkey River. Since we've opened that place 16 years ago, we've experienced 4 major floods, we've experienced downturn, we've experienced pandemic, and we're still open. We are still a business in town there. So, I've learned a lot in my time in Elkader, especially what is possible in a rural town when you really put in the effort to make it a success. So I hope to bring that experience as a representative for this district.
Many small Iowa communities, such as those in Clayton County, struggle. Look at Center Street here in Monona as a perfect example of that. What should be done to help small towns come back and to help the businesses thrive? We'll go ahead and start with you, Brian.
Great, thank you. Well, I think, I go back to what my experience is in Elkader, and I think Elkader has a pretty unique situation. Elkader has kind of bucked the trend of a lot of the towns in this area. It has a thriving downtown. A big part of it is one of the major lessons that I learned as a small business owner. You are not a successful business in a small town by doing it by yourself. You are dependent on everyone else. So take my restaurant, for instance. It is very common that we have folks who drive 3 or 4 hours to come eat at my restaurant. We offer something different that's not really available in a lot of places. But they wouldn't be able to come here if there wasn't also some bed and breakfast for them to stay at as well. There wasn't a coffee shop for them to go at in the morning. There wasn't towns on downtown for them to experience and spend the day there. There wasn't the burger stand for them to grab something to eat on their way home. So we're all dependent together as those businesses. And we have certain anchors in the town that do it, but we are dependent on all of the various businesses coming in and out, and it makes it, people can see themselves having a business in Elkader, and there's a lot of power to that. I think we need to try to replicate those kind of things in a town like Monona, to find what those anchor businesses are and to support them, and also to encourage and work together to find out what other places that are there. What other businesses are necessary to create those sort of things. We are so fortunate in this area to have such wonderful natural beauty, from Clayton County all the way to Allamakee, and I know that the supervisors will say differently, but Allamakee is just as beautiful as Clayton County. The whole Driftless region really is pretty outstanding. I will fight anybody in this state if they, when I say that we have the most beautiful part of the state. It just, there's no competition, and I won't hear anything otherwise. But, so really the idea is, it would be great we could work together as a network, and that's really where a state representative comes in. I think the most important job in some ways of the state representative is to be a cheerleader and an advocate for the area that you represent. We are 3.5 hours away from Des Moines, and it is really easy for them to forget about us here. And I think we need someone in Des Moines speaking out for us and making sure that they never forget District 64, that they know how important we are, and to stand up for us.
I have to agree with Brian. Perfect. It's communities working together, businesses coming together. Transportation has kind of, it's been great to be able to go places, but yet it's kind of killed our small towns too, because you can go to the big box stores. So it has to be communities coming back together again and working together. And we do have great economic development people that work with businesses and communities, trying to work with the housing, employment, businesses, trying to get it all to work together. And on a state level, if there's regulations that are strangling businesses, keeping them from getting going, then I feel like that's where we come in. So let me know, if there's regulations that are stopping you from being productive and doing the things you need to do, then that's where we need to examine some of our codes and regulations and make changes there.
Okay, next question. Consumer prices rose 9.1% in the calendar year that ended in June. What should be done at the state level to keep local inflationary pressure in check? We'll start with Anne this time.
Well, I think first of all, inflation is a federal problem. They've pumped a lot of money into our system, and we haven't been able to keep up with products and services to sell. So therefore we have inflation, and the federal government's gonna have to fix it. I think we were proactive in Iowa because we did lower the tax code so people can keep more money in their pocket. We also removed the sales tax from feminine products and diapers, helping people to keep more money in their pocket. And then on the other end of the scale, we also reduced, or we took away tax on retirement to keep those people in our communities and keep them spending money. But as far as fixing the problem, it's gonna have to be the federal government that steps up, but we've tried to do some things to alleviate those problems for local people.
Right. Absolutely, I think Ann is right. I mean, we don't have a central bank here in Iowa. It is the Federal Reserve who controls interest and those sort of things. We don't control any markets or anything, but one of the things that Iowa does have is that we are an agricultural powerhouse. There is no doubt about that. I think one of the biggest areas where there are inflationary pressures are in food prices. And a lot of those food prices are due to the absolute stranglehold that a lot of meat packers have on various pricings. 80% of all meat is produced or goes through 4 different companies. They can control prices, and they have controlled prices. It is not an uncommon story to hear how companies have raised prices on various products because they can, because people expect it, and so they go through and do it. It would be great if Iowa could get together with other states and to work with the federal government to try to break up some of those stranglehold that they have on it. And not only would it help lower prices for consumers in the pocketbook, but it would also make sure that farmers get a fair price for the products that they're bringing to market. Because as it is right now, they are just as much strangled as everyone, as the consumer when it comes to those monopolies. So again, there's not that much we can do as a state, but boy, we should step forward and try to help our farmers.
Iowa bridges have been ranked among the worst in the country. What should be done at the state level to provide funding not only for bridge projects, but also for other infrastructure needs? Frank?
Well, okay. Well, you know, first of all, I think we are on a precipice of something really interesting. Since the U.S. Congress passed the President Biden's infrastructure bill, there is a lot of that money that is coming to the states and is already being seen being used. You know, the money is not being specifically used for that. I'm well aware of road building and such. My restaurant is located right outside of Keystone Bridge, which has been under construction since April and will continue to be through the end of the year. And despite the fact that that construction has made it very challenging, to say the least, especially when they're jackhammering, for people to sit out on my patio, I still am happy that it's happening because it needs to happen. We cannot have strong economies with crumbling roads, with crumbling bridges. And now, I know that a lot of that money that comes through for road and repair comes through federal expenditures and goes through, but again, I think as a state representative, it is our responsibility to be an advocate for this area, to make sure that we get our fair share. Because I think it's really easy for a lot of that money to go to 380, to go to 80, to go to all these other big projects where a lot of people have, but you know what, we pay taxes too. And we deserve our fair share of the pie. So that's, I think, where we can really help.
Yes, I would have to agree. The Transportation Commission sets the DOT's annual budget, and they identify which projects are the highest priority for construction or repair. So we can make the commission aware of things in our area that need help, that need construction, and so forth. But ultimately, it's in their hands, and they use the road use tax fund. It's proportioned out. They have a formula to do that. So yeah, we do need to just be aware of what's in our area and take that to the commission and let them know.
Okay, next question. What should be done to enhance Iowa's education system, and how will you advocate for our rural schools in this area as well? Brian, I'll start with you.
Well, you know, so my older sister, and she'll probably be angry at me for saying older, she's like 2 years older, but still. She's been a teacher in Dubuque County, which is where Ames is located, for 25 years. She has, God bless her, she has taught 8th grade students reading, language arts and social studies for that entire time. And 8th graders are probably the most challenging of all groups, hearing from her. And so she's really done it there. So I think one of the best things, according to her, that we can do to support teachers and to support education, to make our schools better, is to actually support teachers. Right in the last session, the legislature has been too focused on micromanaging everything that happens in classrooms. Now, I'm not an expert on teaching. I didn't go to school for teaching. I didn't do those things. But my sister did. She has her master's degree in early childhood development. She has done the work. She has studied. She knows how to best educate those students. And we really need to start putting trust back in our teachers, because we can micromanage everything at the state level, but all it does is makes teachers feel like they're unappreciated and that they don't want to continue to teach here. And so that is probably one of the best things that we can do to improve our schools. And then going alongside of it, we need to actually adequately fund those schools. A 2% increase compared to 9% increase in inflation is a 7% reduction. So we cannot expect our schools to maintain themselves on that pittance that the state legislature has felt necessary to give them, especially when there has been continuous bragging about the $1 billion budget surplus that we have. Because to me, when government has a $1 billion budget surplus, it means that the government isn't doing their job. When students don't have school lunches, when rural schools do not have adequate money to fund busing, in all of these situations where we have teachers have to run fundraisers in order to get enough equipment and supplies for their students, our government is not being successful. We need to change that.
Okay, so what should be done to improve our Iowa education system? I do have to disagree that we micromanage teachers. I agree teachers do a fantastic job, and they wouldn't be teaching. They love their kids, they want to see them learn. You might be referring to the fact of not teaching divisive concepts, and I think that's well within the bounds of the state legislature to be aware of what is being taught. There are parents that really don't, they're concerned about their kids and they want them to be taught the basics. They don't want them to be indoctrinated with some ideology. So I think bring it back to local control, that your local people would have control over the curriculum. And then finances, you need your local control on finances. So we as a state will give money to the schools, and it goes like in different silos. It's designated for certain things. And perhaps we need to open up these silos a little bit and let the schools decide where they're gonna spend their money, not be quite so micromanaging on the finances. And yes, as far as inflation, we are gonna have to look at that this year because it has really jumped. So that'll be interesting to see where we can go with schools. The budget is half already taken up by schools. So schools are gonna also have to look at their bottom line, look at their budget. We've got less students in schools, and we knew this was happening, and I would hope that schools had a 5-10 year plan to take that all into account. And I hear from teachers and I hear from parents that discipline is a problem in schools. It's hard to teach, it's hard to learn when there's a lack of discipline. A few years ago, I know we made a few adjustments. Maybe we need to make more so that kids can actually go to school and be there to learn and not be distracted by those that are really not there to learn or have issues. And then a lot of times when I'm talking to people about school, at the very end it boils down to, we need God back in our schools again. Years ago, we used the blue-back speller, the McGuffey readers, and they used biblical concepts all the way through for decades. And we didn't have all the mental health issues. We didn't have the discipline issues. Kids had hope, they had identity. I don't think it's a bad idea. Maybe we need to consider bringing God back into our school system again.
Could I just do a quick response, or you know what?
Yeah, we haven't
Just
done that so far, so.
Okay.
I'm gonna stick with schools here, but we're gonna go a different direction with students, a lot of parents in the audience and things. What should be done to assure that students, teachers, and other staff are safe in our rural schools? And I'm gonna start with Anne on that one.
Currently our schools are locked down. You have to buzz to go into the school, so I think they are protected. And the school boards are free to make these decisions. Each individual school is a little bit different, the community, the buildings. So I think, again, it's up to the school board that they can best handle it. And maybe we need to stop and think, why are there school shootings? What's causing it? the social unrest, the lack of pride in self, drugs, what's happening. Maybe we need to get to the bottom of the issue. But at this point, let the school boards do what's best for their school.
I think it's a fascinating thing to hear about you talking about how it should return to local school to control, or to school boards for local control for schools, when the state legislature specifically banned Johnson County and Polk County from allowing students to wear masks, to restricting mask mandates. You specifically came in and told those school boards you cannot require masks. Now that is a safety issue for me, whether or not students are healthy. And to say that you returning local control to people is ridiculous when it is not demonstrated by the laws that have actually passed and that you have sponsored. Now, I think one of the best things that we can do to help protect students in schools, to protect teachers in schools, is for the legislature to stop attacking them. Because it has become harder to be a teacher than ever before. And you say that they're not micromanaged, but those divisive concepts, the language of that legislation is so wishy-washy that literally anything can fall under that. Teaching the Civil War as it actually is in textbooks could be considered a divisive topic. The world is a divisive topic most of the time. And we do not do our children any disservice from trying to cushion them from the nature of the world. That is not to say that they should not be age appropriate. We should not be teaching stuff about war and violence to kindergartners. No one is saying that. What we're saying is to allow the people who have studied child development to make appropriate lesson plans for them. And going along with that, we need to better protect our students' mental health. We need to actually put funding towards counseling, towards those sort of situations there to help kids who are bullied. Because you know what? If you look at the history of kids who have committed crimes in schools, they all have one thing in common. They were bullied. They were ostracized kids who felt unattached to their communities. We need to do stuff to help that. And one thing that is important to consider in that is that obviously takes funding. Schools are already strapped to just keep the lights on. They don't have funding for those additional resources. We need to help provide those.
Pivoting to a totally different topic, but also involving young people perhaps. Businesses of all types are facing continuing staff shortages. What should be done to help businesses fill their open positions with quality workers? Start with you, Brian.
Sure. Now, in the last year, one of the ideas to help the worker crisis from the legislature and from the governor's office has been to slash unemployment benefits, to make it so painful to be unemployed that you're going to force workers to take jobs that they don't want to do. Now, to me, it seems that it is just hurting those families that are dependent on their breadwinner who is unable to work. And to me, cruelty as a strategy does not work in the long term. It just will always fail. And our government shouldn't be based on that. Now take for instance the example of paraeducators. These are the folks that are in our schools that help special education teachers work with individual students, with their individual education plans. This is incredibly difficult work. You are dealing with students who have real, absolute needs in order to get a good education. Most of these people are paid $10 an hour or less, and there's no benefits. Now, we're asking people to come in and work with these children who absolutely need these help for $10 an hour of benefits. You can get paid $16 an hour working at Aldi. How are we going to encourage people to take these absolutely necessary jobs if we don't actually fund them to pay more? Another statistic that I saw recently that just blew my mind. Dog walkers in America get paid more than childcare workers on average. They make more on average than childcare workers. Where are our priorities? It is a long said, you spend the money on the things that matter to you. To me, education, our kids must not matter very much because we're not spending our money on those people, and we really need to change that. And it's going along the ways as well. We cannot expect people to work jobs when they're still getting paid $7.50 an hour or $7.25 or whatever it is. That is really the hard decision that a lot of businesses are going to have to make. They're going to have to pay people more for the work that they expect of them, because no one is working for free anymore. That's what the pandemic taught us. No one has to work for what they don't, or for less than they think they're worth, because there's a lot of jobs out there. That's the benefit of high employment. There are a lot of jobs out there, and they're going to go to all those jobs. We need to be competitive by actually paying them what they're worth.
Thank you. So our community colleges are working with the area schools to prepare young people for the workforce through working with local businesses, and we passed legislation to encourage college graduates to stay in the state, which I think is going to be important. And yes, we did make changes to the state's unemployment system, incentivizing Iowans to return to the workforce as quickly as possible. I find it interesting that Brian says that they may be forced to work a job that they don't want to do. But I think we've all in life had to do things that we don't want to do. If we're hungry, we're gonna take a job to feed our family or ourselves. I don't think that's a bad thing to encourage people to get back into the workforce, especially when we've got so many jobs to be filled. You can do something for a while, and hey, if you do the job, you might find you really like it. As for dog walkers getting paid more than childcare workers, I guess to me that goes back to the person that has the dogs or has the children. You know, if your dog is more important to you than your children, that's on you. That's not on the state. I agree. We should be paying people to take care of our kids, but who's gonna do that? You know, and I think also employers are stepping up to the plate, that they know they need employees, so they will help with childcare. But it comes back on parents. You know, are you willing to pay more to walk your dog than to have your child taken care of?
Iowa continues to have one of the largest farm-related economies in the nation, if not the largest. What should the state be doing to support local farmers? And I'm gonna start with you on that, Anne.
What should the state be doing to support local farmers? Well, I believe we are supporting local farmers. We're trying to stay out of the way and let them farm. We have an Iowa Farm to School program, which features local products going into the schools, usually fruits and veggies, helping local small farmers in that way. We have a farmers market nutrition program where you can use WIC dollars to purchase at farmers market. We have a lot of financial assistance for conservation practices, no-till, strip-till, all sorts of things. So I do feel like we are helping our farm economy. We also legalized growing hemp for those farmers that felt like that's what they needed to do to diversify. If there's other things, I'm really open to hearing what we can do, because our farm economy is very important in Iowa.
Right.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I think Iowa has done a really good job of supporting agriculture in the state. Probably though, one of the biggest challenges I think facing farmers coming up is the astronomical price of land right now. Unless you have a family that already has that land, it is really challenging for young farmers to even consider getting into it, into farming. There's a lot of folks who just would not be able to pay those wages. Going alongside that is that so much of the land that is currently owned is owned by people who rent it to farmers as well. So there's people who are not actually farming their own land, they're using it as rental income. So it is unsustainable over the long term when there's only renters, or there's only people renting land, and all the farmers getting started need to are forced to rent. It becomes so that the farmers, the younger farmers who are trying to get in, become dependent on being able to get that land. So I think in some ways there are a lot of, you mentioned a lot of great programs. You know, some I think most exciting farmers that I know of in Clayton County specifically are young people who moved back to the area, who decided to do something different, who are doing, for instance, like, you know, organic pigs, or who are doing lambs or something like those, who are creating their own niches within the farm economy that have these value-added products, such as organic, such as, you know, grass-fed, such as those kind of things. Ideally, it would be great if the state could continue to support those, because in a lot of senses, row crop farmers, they have a lot of support on the state level, but also on the federal level. Obviously agriculture will continue to be the most important economy in Iowa. That's not, or economic input in Iowa, that is not going to change. But we want to make sure that we have a longevity to those farms. I know a lot of the farmers I know, they're close to retirement. Who's going to take over those farms? The state should really be working on trying to get younger folks into the industry.
All right, our last question for both of you is, what is your long-term vision for Iowa and how will you advocate for that? We'll start with Anne.
Long-term vision for Iowa. I think we're a pretty awesome state. Farming is our biggest industry, and we're trying to attract people into our state. I think we're doing a pretty good job of that. People like to come to Northeast Iowa especially. We are the most beautiful part. I will continue to advocate for businesses in my area, farming in my area. Giving parents a choice in education so that they want to come here and have their kids educated in great schools. I guess just advocating for my people, being able to talk with businesses, farmers, to know what they need and advocating for them.
Great. Well, so if you ask people why they decide to move to the state of Colorado, one of the main reasons they say is because there's a lot of recreational opportunities for them. They have stuff that they can do when they're not at work. In this part of the state, we have the unique advantage of having a lot of those similar sort of resources. There's canoeing, there's hunting, there's trout fishing, some of the best in the world. There's all of these things. It is a great place to live in our particular area. And with the infrastructure bill increasing the availability of broadband in our rural areas, excuse me, my mouth is getting dry. In our rural areas, there are more opportunities for younger folks to move to this area, to live that beautiful quality of life and still have access to their jobs, to still be able to do those remote things because they'll have good access to the internet. I mean, I will give it out to Alpine. One of the reasons that we decided to settle in Alcater is that back 16 years ago when we had here, there was already that kind of high-speed internet here. It made a huge difference in our decision to actually settle in this area. There is a real opportunity, I think, in the state of Iowa because for a lot of ways there's a natural beauty, but also the cost of living is fairly low compared to other places. We're really easily accessible to major cities like Chicago or Minneapolis or even Madison. There's a lot to offer here. However, young folks do not want to go to a place where they think schools are under attack. They don't want to raise their families in a place where they think that they might not get a good education. That is the most important thing that young parents think about when they move to a place. It's like, how good are my kids going to be in school? Are they going to be safe there? Are they going to learn what they need to learn to be successful? They're not going to want to places where their health care is under attack, where if, God forbid, they have rheumatoid arthritis, they're not able to get their medication because the state wants to outlaw abortion drugs, and those drugs may cause an abortion. You don't think it won't happen? It's already happened in Wisconsin. It's already happened in Ohio. People can't get the drugs they need because of short-sightedness for various laws. They can't go into a place where they will not feel welcome. Iowa has a long history of being an open, welcome state. It has changed. It really has changed. I have heard from people all over, what has happened to Iowa? It used to be the nicest place. Everybody used to help each other. When I was growing up, if your cattle got out, your neighbors came and helped you. Now we can't even seem to have a civil conversation. That needs to change. And it needs to change for the future of the state, because we can't encourage people to move here, and you can't encourage young people to stay here unless they feel welcome. And that's what my long-term vision is to make our state a more welcoming place for other people.
Any final comments? Anne?
Oh, let me see, final comments. Well, I guess I would have to say thank you for your support over the years. I really have enjoyed representing Northeast Iowa. I have so much enjoyed getting to know the people here. Allamakee County was part of my district. I really didn't know people, awesome people up there, along with Clayton County. I try to listen to my constituents' concerns, help them with their problems with government agencies, try to be their voice in Des Moines. I want you to know I'm here for you. Thank you for your support, and I ask for your vote in November.
Brian?
So one of my favorite new businesses in Elkader is Cutting Edge Archery. We agree on absolutely nothing, not a damn thing. We are as politically opposed as anyone else. But I love that they're in Elkader, because they offer a broadness to the downtown business community that we really needed. We needed those kind of things. It's the same with the Highland Arms gun shop moving in there. It offered a broader, more complex business community. And we are in it together. So that's we had this conversation, is that, you know what? Even though we don't agree on anything, you're my neighbor. And we are working together to make each other successful. I love that. That gives me hope for the rest of the state. I hope that we can bring that vision throughout the entire district, from New Albin all the way down to Holy Cross, because that is how we go forward as a state. Thank you, and thank you, Anne, for coming.
And we'd like to thank all of the candidates and everybody who came. Don't forget to go out and vote. Voting, I believe they said, started November 19th for absentee voting. And second Tuesday in November for the in-person voting. Thank everybody and have a great night.
I think you do a lot of cooking by yourself.